Hello and welcome to another edition of the Hog Hoops Report. Hayden Herrera alongside Kevin McPherson. Kevin, I forgot to say it last week. I'm just going to say it today. This is March. Shout out to John Rothstein. The regular season finally coming to a close. Arkansas going to Columbia, getting an overtime win, 88-84. Kevin, Arkansas, they really had to grind that one out. What did you learn about this team from the way they were able to, kind of handle that back and forth game and then able to execute in overtime?
Well, they were without Darius Acup Jr., who is the best player in the SEC, a first-team All-American. That's loading and coming. In fact, John Rothstein, CBS Sports, already included Darius Acup on his All-America first team. But I think the other thing is we know DJ Wagner last year. This is why it's so valuable to have a player like a DJ Wagner. So even though his role has been diminished this year, he proved last year he could lead a team into the postseason to a Sweet 16. So he gets the keys to the team as the lead point guard won yesterday with Acup out. And he put up the best defensive performance I've seen from that backcourt all season long. Arguably the best point of attack on-ball defense I've seen from any player for the Razorbacks this year. And then you had a bunch of other players step up. I'm sure we're going to talk about it. So I was impressed. I mean, coming out of a weekend ago, getting embarrassed at Florida and Arkansas, how do you respond in the final week of the regular season going into postseason? You had to be nervous a little bit if you're a Razorback fan, except that the Razorbacks went 2-0 last week against two NCAA tournament teams, and you go on the road without Acup. That was Arkansas's best true road game of the season, and their second best away from home win. The other one was the first, number one on that list was Texas Tech and Dallas. So this was a huge game, a huge week for Arkansas. And I thought the Razorbacks, even though there are still a lot of question marks defensively for this team, we know the offense is elite. All you can hope for is to start winning after a bad loss like that. You didn't want that to become contagious and infect the rest of the season, because you're at the part of the season now, March. Guess what? Arkansas is undefeated in March. They're 2-0. They want to keep it that way.
Yeah, the vibes from Gainesville seem to be gone. They left him. They didn't even let him get back on the plane from Gainesville. Pretty fitting that Trevor Brazile, former Missouri Tiger, makes that go-ahead three in overtime. What did you think about his performance and the way just he impacted the game on both ends, looking at 19 points and 9 rebounds?
He got off to a great start, and Arkansas got off to a great start, built a 15-point lead. And I think it was because of that, because the Razorbacks banked that much of a cushion, it allowed them to absorb some of those Missouri runs and not get too far behind. Arkansas fell behind no more than 5 points. That was in the second half, but that's only a 2-possession deficit, so it kept Arkansas. Brazile had a big part in how the game started. He had a good game overall, but when you got to that overtime, Arkansas took a 4-point lead, then a 5-0 Missouri run, put the Tigers up by a point. You're under a minute, and Trevor Brazile splashes not just a three. That was an NBA range 25-footer on his former team, and Arkansas never trailed again. This dude, I've said it all year long, despite some of his off games, if you really look at it, he's Arkansas's, he's been Arkansas's most consistent. He and Billy Richmond, two-way players when you look at offense and defense, even though, again, defensively, Brazile may have some of his shortcomings, but he makes big plays. And sometimes he makes big plays at both ends of the court late in games, and yesterday was just an example with that three that we talked about. But again, I think Trevor Brazile, 19 points, 2 of 4 from three, efficient game for him, put back dunks. So Arkansas won second chance points. A big part of that was him. And then he, had 3 steals, which was a game high, the 9 rebounds, game high matching. And then he also had a block. So, Trevor Brazile, if you look at the back-to-back games, and we'll talk Texas, I guess, in a little bit, but when he had a career-high 28 points, he had a great final week. His final game ever at Bud Walton Arena, then the final regular season game as a Razorback, and it was against his former team in their house where he started his career. I mean, this is kind of storybook stuff. It may not be on a national level, but if if you follow the Razorbacks, these are important things. I mean, he could have gone out with a whimper instead, and there's more basketball to go, but that's a hell of a way to close out your regular season career.
Yeah, you mentioned it off the top. Arkansas, they had to navigate that game without Darius Acuff. Offense, though, still produced. You mentioned DJ Wagner there. But what did you think about just the way the rest of the roster, stepping up in that situation, especially on the road?
Well, Malik Thomas, he had his seventh 20-plus point game in the league on the season, and this was a league game to match his career high of 28 points, 5 of 6 from 3. He's Arkansas's best free throw shooter, 5 of 6 at the foul line. Just had an overall really good game, 7 rebounds. We know he's a strong rebounder at the guard spot. Dare I say, if he was in the backcourt and DJ Wagner was his lead guard all year, because Acuff is so good, we sometimes forget about how good Malik Thomas is. This is a 20-point per game scorer in a scenario where he's a backcourt mate with DJ Wagner this season. And I don't know how much drop-off you have on this team in terms of the value of the team, because I think Arkansas even got better yesterday defensively in the backcourt. And again, I'm not banging on Acuff. Acuff is a generational talent. It shows up on the offensive end in some of the greatest ways we've ever seen. And that's important to remember. But it's also important to remember there's more than one way to skin a cat. And Malik Thomas has been a big part of Arkansas' success. He began the season playing off the bench. 16 games off the bench. Now, after yesterday, 15 games as a starter. So he's been in that starting lineup for a minute. He replaced Wagner. They played well together. But Malik Thomas was huge. And then we probably got to talk about the other Malik here in a second as well.
No, absolutely. Okay, so Arkansas starts off this game, big lead, but Missouri comes back before the half. It's I believe it was a 3-point game at the half. Then, Mizzou making multiple pushes. They grab the lead. What did you see Arkansas do, defensively, strategically to kind of withstand those runs and still find a way to get the win?
Well, you just had to have certain players step up. Arkansas's weakness all year long has been force, resistance, especially in the paint. I mentioned DJ Wagner on the perimeter. You didn't really see Missouri guards. You've seen guards all year get all the way to the basket. Not a whole lot of redirecting their flow or walling off their drives on the perimeter. And yesterday you saw DJ Wagner, whether it was Stone or Robinson off the bench or Barrett, just no clean angles for them to drive and get all the way to the rim. He did a great job of staying in front. And then you talk about force. I thought Trevor Brazile played one of his better games in terms of dishing out some impact with his body around the basket, some of those putback dunks. Again, the 9 rebounds. We saw Mark Mitchell going at him just like Mitchell had another great game like he did in Fable, 32 points. And some of that was going from the perimeter, driving TB into the paint. And so not that Arkansas's interior was great, but I thought Malik Ewan, he had a horrible first 32 minutes. 32 minutes in the game, Arkansas is down 5. You got 8 minutes to play. He's 1 of 7 from the field, 0 of 2 at the foul line, 2 turnovers, and some really porous defense. Just not a whole lot of effort or locked in at all. Arkansas is down 5. How did Arkansas flip the script? I mentioned some of it. This guy started going to work. Blocked shot. He started getting on the glass, both ends of the court. He was more of a presence defensively than he'd been. He went from a liability. I mentioned what his stats were in the first 32 minutes. He was a game low box score -10 at that point. From that point on, he was a box score +9. If you take the last 8 minutes of regulation, the 5 minutes of overtime, 15 of his 17 points. I think he got 6 or 7 of his 9 rebounds, either both of his blocks or at least one of them. He really made an impact physically because he battled for loose balls. He didn't just yield. And so I thought, it was time for him to step up. This is one of the most puzzling things on the team this year is Malik Ewan, who in game goes from both extremes, from the North Pole to the South Pole. It's not like he's just quiet for a while and you're not getting much stats from him, but he's playing okay. It's like it goes from hot to cold, freezing cold to, scorching hot. And you want the scorching hot part in a close game to come at the end and help you win. So it was better that it wasn't reversed in the other order. And that's typically what it's been with him. I'm spending a lot of time on it because it is puzzling, perplexing, and an enigma. Usually you know what you're getting with him. It's all over the map, and you're just waiting. You're hoping that the good angel on the left shoulder pops up and ready to go to work in a good way for you before it's too late.
Can the same be said about Nick Pringle? I mean, you look at his box score and it's not great, but he did have a big he had a big bucket late there that proved to be pivotal in sealing that win.
Yeah, he stays in foul trouble. And you look at him statistically, a lot of times it's disappointing. I mean, he had 4 points, no rebounds. And you'll see a lot of games where it's 1, 2, 3 rebounds. But the truth is, he was a box score plus 14 at that same 32-minute mark. He ends up with a game-high box score plus 10. And so statistically, it doesn't show up, and there's plenty to complain about. His hands aren't the greatest. They missed some opportunities. Again, some of the stats that you just think, how is he going and playing even 16 minutes without a rebound? But Arkansas's defense when he was on the court was just better. It was just an advantage, and he was a part of that. Sometimes stats don't tell the whole story. And then he did have a big bucket late. That was a nice lob pass to him. I believe his came off a pass from Leak. And that was in overtime. Arkansas went on a 5-0 run. The Hogs were down a point. He gets a layup off a lob, I think, from Malik Thomas, and then Ewan hits a 3 after Arkansas got a stop. So it was a 5-0 run. Arkansas went up 4. Missouri on a 5-0 run, goes back up a point. Then you're inside a minute. TB hits that 25-footer from 3. Arkansas never relinquishes the lead from there.
We'll get to the postseason in a bit, but when you look at the way Arkansas won that game, tight, physical road game, goes to overtime. I mean, is that the kind of result that can, help a team heading into postseason play?
Yeah, it's better than the alternative. I mean, it's Arkansas's second best win away from home on the season. And so you're going to be playing the rest of them away from home. Arkansas was one blemish away from being perfect in 17 games or 18 games playing in-state, 17 at Bud Walton Arena. Now everything's on a neutral court from here on out. And so this was a true road game. So it's away from what you're comfortable with. So I think it does help. But at the end of the day, Arkansas, still has some things it needs to iron out. But at the same time, you'd rather finish off winning going into postseason than scratching your head and have to regroup because you've lost that touch. Let's not forget the midweek game against Texas. Arkansas was coming off an embarrassing loss to Florida. Arkansas's 8-0 this season in bounce back games after coming off a loss. So you combine, the performance and finding a way to win in overtime, the 2-0 week. But I think another big story here is the whole reason Arkansas has had the season it has, second place, tied for second when the dust settled in the SEC, which is obviously another strong year for the SEC. And the amount of teams that are going to get selected on for the NCAA tournament is going to help back up that notion. But a big part of Arkansas is the resiliency and the bounce back ability. Now, moving forward, you don't get a chance to bounce back if you lose, right? It's not double elimination. It's one and done.
Yeah.
So, but the point I'm making here is that at least this team doesn't show signs of sliding. And again, for what it's worth, once you get in the postseason, there's not an opportunity if you do lose to come back and make good on it.
Yep, they all matter extra special now that we're in March. All right, Kevin, we'll take a quick break. We'll when we return, we'll talk about that Texas game and look ahead to the SEC tournament. Stick around. You're watching the Hog Hoops Report. Welcome back to the Hog Hoops Report. Hayden Herrera alongside Kevin McPherson. We just went over the regular season finale with Arkansas taking down Missouri on the road. Now let's talk about that home finale. Arkansas hosting Texas last Wednesday. They score 105 points. They win by 20 over the Longhorns. Kevin, what stood out most to you about the offensive performance in that one?
Well, it was just another game, 100-plus points. This has been a top 5 offense when you look at this team consistently throughout the season. So, it didn't surprise me. I think the biggest thing, that was encouraging, I mentioned bouncing back from that terrible performance at Florida and Arkansas. The whole to me, the biggest thing Arkansas needed to do, win or lose, was get back into attack mode. I thought they, really kind of shied away from getting into the mix against Florida, and that's a great team defensively and offensively. But Arkansas took itself out of its own in that game. And so you come back the next night out. Yeah, you were at home and you got the crowd behind you. It doesn't mean that you're going to come out with necessarily with a lot of confidence or maybe still have your tail between your legs. Arkansas didn't do that. The Razorbacks really got after it, and I thought took the fight to Texas. And I think that was a really a big deal for Arkansas psyche. I'm no shrink, but I just noticed immediately Arkansas really went on the attack. It's the strength of the team anyway, but they weren't bashful about it. So I thought that was a big deal, Double H. And then Arkansas got it rolling. And so led by, I think, as many as 28 points in the second half, had led it by double digits most of that game. They jumped on Texas early and just, got a double-digit lead and just pretty much held it the rest of the way. And you look at Acuff, his last regular season game, because he didn't play against Missouri, last game at Bud Walton Arena, 28 points, a career high, matching 13 assists, double-double. And then you look at Trevor Brazile, career high 28 points. I mean, you look across the board, and Arkansas had plenty of positives. And I thought, defensively, the first half was good. I thought the second half, Arkansas had some real slippage. Again, Arkansas had that, led it by 22 at halftime. So, if this team weren't so anemic defensively consistently, I might not be as concerned about that. Still, a little bit there. But you mentioned the offense, man. Arkansas, another game. I don't know how many it's been now this year. I didn't check before we came on to score 100 or more points, but it seems like several, and there was just another one.
I mean, you mentioned, it's no, shocker when it comes to, the defensive limitations of this team, but you mentioned it, the 28 and 13 from Acuff and Brazile with 28. I mean, is that basically the level they're going to have to play at, when it comes NCAA tournament time, if they want to go far?
I mean, it wouldn't hurt to have that, but you've got other guys. I mean, we've seen Billy Richmond rise up and have 5 consecutive games or 20 or more points. I think you got to have, a Batman and a Robin and then a good supporting cast. But Arkansas, because the talent level that Calipari recruited and because of the level of play of some of these guys here at the end of the year, it doesn't have to be the same two every time. Of course, you want Acuff. He's Batman, Superman, whatever you want to call him. I call him the Terminator. He's arguably the best player in the country. I actually think he is. I think, he and Cam Boozer have the best cases. But outside of Acuff and riding with Acuff, you could plug and play several others who you need to continue to step up. You need Brazile to be as good as he was this time last year and rolling into postseason. You love it that Billy Richmond is now a real threat and on that scouting report as a scorer on top of everything else he does. How about DJ Wagner before yesterday? He was averaging 10.2 points per game and a 3.3 to 1 assist to turnover ratio in his previous 5 games as Arkansas comes down the stretch. And then he hits you with another 10, a game high 5 assists, 4 rebounds. I mean, he did the job yesterday. And I mentioned the on-ball defense was as good as Arkansas had all year long. That point of attack D by DJ really impressed me. So you got a cast of guys that can help you. And again, let's not forget Malik Thomas, who's averaging between 15 and 15.5 points per game, shooting over 41% from 3, the team's best free throw shooter. He's a strong rebounder at the guard spot. Arkansas's got plenty of dudes that can go and get it done. But certainly you're hoping Acuff with this extra day off, game out, you get the double bye to the Friday quarters in Nashville. You hope that he comes back rested and as healthy as he's been. So offensively, I'm not too worried about Arkansas. It's always going to be that defensive end.
Absolutely. All right, that game against Texas was not only senior night, there were also 2 other announcements in that game. One, that Nolan Richardson, legendary coach, is getting his own statue outside Bud Walton Arena. And 2, that Tyson Foods will be the jersey sponsor. There'll be a jersey patch on every Razorback uniform. That includes basketball starting next season. So would love to get your thoughts on Nolan and the jersey patches.
Yeah, well, let's start with Nolan, the GOAT of coaching in Arkansas. Think about that. Now, Calipari's just in year two, but Nolan, Calipari, and Eddie Sutton are all Hall of Fame coaches that spent, Sutton and Nolan a lot of years at Arkansas. So for him to be the one that gets the statue is fitting. I mean, he represents the coach that brought Arkansas its lone national championship in college basketball. Got him to two back-to-back title games, three Final Fours, and so many other things he did in his career. For there to be a statue outside the arena, I mean, to me that was. It's easy for me to say because it's not my money, but it was a no-brainer, and this is something that, you were hoping would get done, and finally it is. And so, great on the university to get that done. I think Arkansas needs more banners in the Raptors. Retire if you're not going to retire the jerseys, honor them. Sidney Moncrief and Corliss Williamson are great starts, but there's at least 10 to 12 others, and that's not giving everybody a participation trophy. That's how great this program is. There's 10 to 12 more that need to be, that absolutely should be hanging from those rafters. So I'm glad you brought up, the statue. That's a big deal. Nolan's name's on the court. Now he's getting a statue. Let's get some of these great players, get their jerseys honored up in those rafters. There's just not enough up there. And believe me, when I say 10 or 12, that's leaving some studs out.
Yeah.
So I know some of this has limitations, but at least 10 more, maybe 12, maybe as many as 12 or 13, in addition to Moncrief and Corliss. That's how great it's been at Arkansas.
And then any thoughts on the jersey pat? Obviously, Tyson Foods, already, hand in hand with the basketball program, and this just another visible, sign of that.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about more money for the university, and you know what Tyson's meant to the men's basketball program, to athletics over the years in general, and there are more than we could point to a lot of stuff, but getting that, having that level of commitment going both ways is only going to benefit the University of Arkansas financially, and I think it also raises the possibility for other donors to see themselves in branding opportunities with Arkansas, and maybe the Razorback athletic department can build on it and hope they can help snowball that kind of situation beyond the Tyson brand.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk a little SEC tournament. Everything starts in Nashville on Wednesday. We've been talking about it for weeks, securing that double bye, and how important it was. Now that, the bracket's set and Arkansas has it, what jumps out at you on their side? If it goes chalk, then it would be Arkansas taking on Texas A&M in the quarterfinals on Friday night. But just finally getting that, securing that double bye. I mean, it's got to be just whenever it finally happened, it had to be just a sigh of relief for Cal and that whole crew over there.
Yeah, and the other thing is I love the matchups. I love the way the bracket plays for Arkansas. And here's why. There's not a team on Arkansas' side of it so whatever opponent Arkansas gets on that Friday, there's not a team that plays prior to that has a frontline matchup problem for Arkansas. Texas A&M's small in the front line. Oklahoma's not world beaters. Oklahoma's playing really well. It is a hot team that needs to add more wins for a chance to maybe sneak in as an automatic, as a at-large qualifier, even as a play-in potentially if it can win enough. But there's not a matchup on that side that bothers me for Arkansas. Some of the matchups that can be problematic from Arkansas are on the other side of the bracket. So that's number one. The other thing is you only have 3 games in 3 days if you can win. And for a team that's short on roster depth to begin with, now short-handed on that roster depth, and we know Arkansas has been banged up and nicks and bruises, and most teams are at this time of the year. But when you already have a short rotation, it's probably more prolific. Some of those things stand out even from before. So I think from that standpoint, I think this is a lot of things stack up in Arkansas's favor. Now, if Arkansas loses in the SEC tournament, even the quarterfinal on Friday, not a big deal. You're playing for the NCAA tournament. Your seeding is probably locked in at less than a 5. I don't think a loss in the SEC tournament is going to change that. And I don't know. I think Arkansas probably has to get to the championship game, maybe, to even, there may be a way without doing that to get to a 4 seed, but probably not. You'd probably need to win the quarterfinal game, and then maybe beat Bama in the semifinals to get to the title game to maybe move off the 5 line to the 4. That's all a matter of conjecture, but I like the way it sets up. And Arkansas, no matter how bad that outing was against Florida, and it's a bad matchup for Arkansas for a ton of stuff we've already talked about in the last week, but you still want another crack at that. I would love to see Arkansas and Florida again. Maybe I'm just, what do you call it? Self-inflicted wounds ready, But I just think you want to play the best and measure yourself again, neutral court. And if you won that game, man, you really are on a roll. It's be Arkansas' second ever, only SEC tournament championship. And then you've got real momentum going to the NCAA tournament. Again, 3 games in 3 days. It's a heavy lift for a team, again, with not a lot of roster numbers. But I like the bracket. Because I think it's very favorable for Arkansas.
Well, I mean, seeding aside, and you kind of laid out, where things stand with as far as seeding for the NCAA tournament. But what do you think Arkansas needs to show in Nashville to just feel good as a team about where they stand going into the NCAA tournament?
Well, you don't want to have happen what you saw happen at Auburn and at Florida. Period. I mean, you just got to. And obviously as a 3 seed, you want to win that quarterfinal matchup because you're the higher seed. When you get to the semis, chances are you're playing Bama and they're the 2 seed. But I think if you're the Razorbacks, you want to play Bama again, especially the way that game finished in Tuscaloosa. So, I just think Arkansas, pick up at least 1 win, be competitive, don't backslide. But, there's just not a ton of value necessarily in conference tournaments. I don't think you can take away a whole lot from them. Even if you win them, sometimes teams spend a lot of energy and emotion winning a conference tournament, and then they lay an egg immediately in the NCAA tournament. Mm-hmm. And so you just never can tell or what you can take away from it. I think the biggest thing is stay healthy, be competitive. You don't want to embarrass yourself, but I'm not sure whether you win or lose that there's a whole lot of value or negative either way going into the NCAA tournament.
All right. It'll be in 8:30 Central, maybe a little bit after, depending on how that game before them goes. Those games can always kind of run late in Nashville, but that'll be Friday night in the quarterfinals, Arkansas against either Texas A&M, Oklahoma, or South Carolina. It's postseason time and one of the best times of the year, and I'm glad we're finally right in the midst of it. All right, Kevin, this has been great, as always. Thank you for joining us, as always, this season. This has been your Hog Hoops Report. I'm Hayden Herrera. More Pig Trail coming up after the break.